Why did Jesus die? Over 2,000 years ago, in a place called Bethlehem, the promised Messiah was finally born to his mother Mary in a stable. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Isaiah 9:6. But what no one but him realized yet was that he came to die. On Palm Sunday, the Sunday that Jesus Christ triumphantly entered into Jerusalem, he was hailed as a king, and yet the same Wednesday, he was lying dead in a borrowed tomb. What happened? When Jesus entered the city, the Jews believed he was coming to overthrow their Roman dictators and usher in the kingdom of heaven and rule as king. The Pharisees thought he was nothing but a phony, a false prophet, and they needed to get rid of him. Tension between Jesus and the Pharisees was already at an all-time high, but time would only make this worse. Jesus entered into the temple, the most sacred place for the Jews, and saw the dealings that were going on there. He proceeded to overturn the money changers' tables, kicking them out of the temple. Is it not written, "My house shall be called of all nations the house of prayer, but ye have made it a den of thieves"? Mark 11:17. All the people were amazed by this. No one had ever challenged the merchants like this before, whereas the Pharisees kept lurking in the shadows, biding their time. Later, a woman poured ointment on Jesus' head. This made Jesus' disciples upset because the ointment was expensive, and they thought it was a waste. But for one of them, Judas Iscariot, this was the last straw. Judas went to the Pharisees to scheme against Jesus, betraying him. This made the Pharisees absolutely hysteric. With Judas' help, they could finally destroy Jesus. Then they had the Passover, the Last Supper that Jesus would have before going to the cross. He had conversations with his disciples, sharing wisdom and enjoying his time, but he knew what was going on. "Verily I say unto you, one of you which eateth with me shall betray me." Mark 14:18. Jesus said that whoever he gave the bread or the sop to would be the one that betrayed him, and after he had dipped, he gave it to Judas. And after the sop, Satan entered into him. Then said Jesus unto him, "That thou doest, do quickly." John 13:27. Judas left. And when they had sung an hymn, they went out into the Mount of Olives. Mark 14:26. Now when they had made it to the Mount of Olives, it was presumably early in the morning, and they had traveled all night. So Jesus left his disciples, except for Peter, James, and John, and went a little further up the mountain. When he came back, he found Peter, James, and John all asleep. At this time, Judas, who had been planning with the Pharisees, came up the mountain to where Jesus was, with soldiers that the chief priests had given him to take Jesus away. Then Peter pulled out his sword to attack one of the soldiers. He swung for his head and missed, but he still cut his ear clean off. But then Jesus miraculously healed the soldier's ear and scolded Peter, saying, "Put up thy sword into the sheath. The cup which my Father hath given me, shall I not drink it?" John 18:11. They took Jesus, and a lot of his disciples scattered. Jesus was taken before the chief priests first, where false witnesses were brought to bear witness against him, but their statements were just contradictory, so they had no evidence against him. Then they brought him to Pontius Pilate, the governor of Judea. After questioning, Pilate came out of the judgment hall and told the people that, "I find in him no fault at all," in John 18:39. Now, I won't get into all of it, but because of the Passover and the customs surrounding it, a prisoner got to be let go. They got the choice between Jesus or a man named Barabbas, whose crimes included, but are not limited to, murder and robbery. Nevertheless, the people still cried for Jesus to be crucified, and Barabbas to be set free. Pilate then washed his hands of it and said he was innocent of the blood of this just person. Jesus was then taken, and he was beaten, and a crown of thorns was placed on his head. They put a robe of purple around him just to mock him. And finally, using nails in his hands and in his feet, they crucified him. nailing him to a cross to die. And he sat up there for 6 hours. For 6 hours he endured the pain and the suffering until finally he cried, "It is finished," and died. So after looking over all this, we got to see the events that unfolded leading up to Jesus' death, and now we can answer the question, why did Jesus die? Well, we saw the unease of the Pharisees and scribes who began looking for a way to have Jesus killed, and then we saw the betrayal of Judas, one of Jesus' disciples, that was really the final nail in the coffin, but we're missing something. Sure, these were the events that led to Jesus' death, the things that had to unfold for him to get to the cross and die, but this is not the reason why he died. Jesus came as the only begotten Son of God, and he came for a purpose, to forgive the sins of the world. See, after Jesus had died, they placed him in a tomb of a man named Joseph, but it would only be borrowed because 3 days later he rose from the grave, triumphing over death, hell, and the grave. The Jews may have put him on the cross. They may have crucified him. They may have beat him, but they didn't kill him. It said in John 19:30 that he gave up the ghost. Through all that torment, through all he was going through, he stayed on the cross by choice. He had bands of angels at the ready, and yet he let himself die. The Son of God let himself be crucified on the cross for one reason, because of mankind's sin, to save us from our sin nature, to save us from our sins. And now, friend, if you'll only accept God, if you will accept that free gift that he died, he was buried, but then 3 days later he rose again victorious over death, hell, and the grave, then you too can be saved. And that is why Jesus truly died. But he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. Isaiah 53:5.